What is up, Survivor fans? This is Savannah Louie, your Survivor Season 49 winner. And we are here with this season's retrospective by Reality Art Pod. When I'm not playing on the beach, you can always find me on Instagram or TikTok. We had so much fun in Season 49, a lot of highs and a lot of lows. So enjoy.
Hi everyone, it's Chenso from Reality Art Pod, here with a full season recap of Survivor 49. I recap this season in live time and put it together so you can watch it in one sitting. In the end, I'll give my review on the season as a whole. If you like this video, consider liking and subscribing, as I'll be recapping season 50 in live time in the spring. But let's dive into it, starting with the premiere. The episode starts with Juwan saying in Act 1 of a horror film, you're just trying to survive, but Act 2 is when you flip the script and now you're the monster. Oop, he said the thing. We meet Alex, who works in politics, saying at work and in Survivor, he's ready to kiss butt. Savannah wants to use her investigative skills as a reporter to get information, saying this is the easiest million she'll ever make. Jake shares he used to be a Magic Mike dancer, so he's gonna charm women in the game. RIZGOD Rizgod is here, representing as the first Albanian survivor. Players make it to the beach, with Yellow Tribe especially cheery. Christina has a lot of energy, screaming and shouting and letting it all out. Jason shares with the group that he's an alternate who just found out he was on the show the day before. Sage tells Jeff she pees when she's nervous, so she peed multiple times off the side of the boat. Jake shares that his dad is losing his vision, and this is the last season of Survivor his dad's going to be able to see. Jeff starts talking about how great Survivor is with a montage of all players who are on season 50. How convenient. They're really warming us up. Yellow Tribe is Hina, red is Uli, and blue is Kella. They get to their first challenge for reward. On each tribe, one pair will run into the jungle to get crates. Another pair will swim out to get a boat full of crates. The last pair will use the crates to complete a cube puzzle that one player will jump off of to hit their bell and win tribe supplies. The first team to complete this will win flint and supplies, and the two losing tribes will have to fight to earn their supplies a different way. They get started. Magic Jake runs out ahead for Kayla, impressing everyone, but Annie comes back last with her piece for Kayla, putting them in last heading to the swim. Shannon and Savannah bring their boat back first for Red Uli, followed by Hina and Kelly still in last. Jason leads Christina to complete the puzzle for Hina, and MC brings it home, ringing the bell and winning tribe supplies for Hina. The two losing tribes have to pick a representative to go on a journey and compete for supplies. Uli picks Rizzo, and Kelly picks butt kisser Alex. Everyone else heads back to camp. Jake is impressed with Alex for stepping up to go on the journey. Getting to camp, Hina tribe is still cheery. Jason is still surprised he's in the TV. Steven shares he's a rocket scientist, and people call him Discount Ryan Reynolds. He tells them he found out as an adult that he has hearing loss and has hearing aids. He and Christina laugh and bond. Christina fumbles with the machete, gags on a coconut, screams at wildlife, but she's loving it. At Kelly, Jeremiah quickly bonds with Jake, both being from Canada, and Nicole says she's happy there's another gay person on the tribe. Then Nicole falls right into a bush, which was funny. Sophie's being a social butterfly, approaching Nicole, Jeremiah, and Jake. Sophie loves that Beefcake Jake is on her tribe. Over on Uli, Nate reveals that he's worked in production on Spider-Man, but he's downplaying and not mentioning that he worked as producer on projects like Black Panther. Jawan is still geeking out over Nate. Sage and Shannon bond, calling each other soul sisters. Shannon calls herself a mix between Donnie Wahlberg and Stevie Nicks. She leads the girls in ocean prayer, but tells us she's ready to start cutting people. I guess that's the Donnie Wahlberg side. Rizzo and Alex head to their challenge, where they each need to race to collect coconuts, rip open the coconuts to get puzzle pieces, then solve the puzzle, which is a map. Then they'll use the map to find the ship wheel buried in the sand to raise their flag. When Rizzo sees it's a puzzle, he thinks he's cooked. They get started. Alex is running, and Rizzo's quickly exhausted. Alex starts his puzzle first. Rizzo's a mess here. He's missing a piece that's still in a coconut. Alex solves his map and heads out, but he can't find his ship wheel, so Rizzo starts copying Alex's puzzle, which was so funny. And Rizzo realizes he's missing his piece and finds it. Now they're both digging, and Rizzo finds the ship wheel, winning reward for his tribe. He gets emotional and confessional, saying he wishes he could hug himself, acknowledging that that would be weird. Rizgod is the Uli tribe celebrity when he gets back, telling the group how his parents immigrated from Albania and they want him to live his American dream. He tells us RIZGOD, the man, the myth, the legend, is here to play. Alex gets back to camp with nothing but bad news. He tells the group the truth, but Jake still likes Alex and brings Alex in on the little alliance with Sophie. Jake tells us he had a sign from God to trust Alex, and Jake tells his alliance that his wife is pregnant at home and having his baby while he's on the show. Sharing this builds trust with the new trio. Back on Hina, they're still giggling, now about Jason being a pro Smash player. Matt has never heard of Smash, but Matt's got survival skills. He was a Boy Scout. He lets the others try to make fire, but he eventually starts the fire for the tribe. Nicole has lost her shoe. Jake calls himself the shoe bandit, telling us every day he's gonna hide someone's shoe. He thinks this is so funny. I'm glad someone does. Annie is used to running her business back home, so she's giving everyone their chores for the day. The tribe goes off and invites her, but she declines, which makes her look sketchy to the rest. Jeremiah is ready to throw Annie right under the bus. Alex likes Annie though. He approaches her for an alliance alliance. He says Annie reminds him of the congresswoman he works for, and they make a little duo. Back on Uli, Shannon leads the group in meditation. Savannah hates the meditation. She's over it, and Savannah feels like deep down, Shannon is ready to play hard. Savannah, Shannon, and Jawan make a three-person alliance at the well, and they're looking for a fourth alliance member, with Jawan making it sound like he's the sole decision maker on who joins the alliance. Back at Hina, you guessed it, they're giggling, now holding hands and skipping into the water. Steven is hamming it up with everyone, bonding with Matt, Jason, MC. MC tells him at first she wasn't sure about him, which was a tonal shift. Now he's starting to feel paranoid and anxious, telling us his feelings of not belonging in high school are creeping up on him in the game. Alex and Jake continue their bromance. They're holding hands and frolicking, which is very bromantic. Sophie tells us she's jealous of the bromance, but Jeremiah wants to work with the bromance. Jeremiah approaches Jake, and Jake says, maybe I can get Alex and Sophie to make a four-person alliance. Wouldn't it be convenient if Jake was already in alliance with those people? At Uli, Nate feels singled out by being the oldest guy and only dad on the tribe. Nate is trying to form his Avengers, starting with Savannah. He also likes Shannon and Rizzo. Jawan is stressed. He's trying to make fire, but this turns into a breakdown, and he storms off. Savannah sees this as a red flag and is considering firing Jawan from the alliance. They head to their immunity challenge. In pairs, they'll go through a mud pit and rope tunnel, race into the jungle to get their 3 200-pound snakes. Then 3 tribe members will work together to complete a table maze. Jeff reveals the sexy immunity idols. The first 2 teams to complete this win immunity. And reward, first place gets a survivor toolkit, second place gets puny tools. They get started, getting all muddy. Hina gets to a lead with the first snake. Jake is again teamed with Annie. He pretty much carries the whole snake by himself. Sage and Rizzo are slowest with the first snake, putting Uli in last. But Nate, who Jeff calls the behemoth as he barges over the horizon, helps Uli overtake Blue Kelly. Jeremiah asks Nicole how to get mud out of his eyes, to which she instantly spits water right in his face, which I guess is one way to do it. All 3 tribes are on the maze at the same time now, and notoriously giggly Hina tribe laugh their way to a first place victory, and after Nicole causes Kelly's ball to drop, Uli wins second immunity. Losing Kelly head back to camp. Jake, Sophie, Jeremiah, and Alex agree that Nicole has been slowing them down in challenges, but Alex tells Nicole that Annie's the target. Nicole thinks everyone's being suspicious and people's stories aren't adding up. Nicole also randomly pukes, which doesn't help her case at this time. The 4 tell Annie that she's the decoy vote, which Annie seems okay with, but Annie sees this as a sign that she'll be targeted next. She approaches Sophie about it, suggesting that after Nicole, they target the men, which makes Sophie feel Annie's playing harder than she thought. She brings this right back to the guys, and they start considering Annie as a target. So they head to tribal council, where Alex says they become a family. Jeff doesn't want to hear that. Jeff's niceness era is over. Sophie says she doesn't want to be anyone's side chick on the island. She's been there, done that. Nicole compliments everyone, and Jake says Nicole is hardworking and kind, which chokes Nicole up. Jeremiah and Annie have a big ol' laugh. Jeremiah then tells Jeff they're voting out the weakest link, they've narrowed it down to 2 people, and that the person who's going home has no idea. This was a wild thing to say, and now Nicole is very spooked right as they're getting to the votes, but Nicole doesn't play her shot in the dark, and Jeff reads the votes, and by a vote of 5-1, Nicole is voted out of the game. So we lose Nicole here, who had a really rough episode from start to finish, from holding the team back in the first challenge, falling in the bush, having her shoes stolen, holding the team back in immunity, and ultimately making a mistake on the puzzle, which cost them the win, throwing up at camp, spitting in Jeremiah's face, which I guess was helpful. They really had to vote her out here. Even if you like someone personally, on these small tribes, if you keep someone you know is going to cost you a win in the future, you're playing yourself. But after hearing what Jeremiah said at Tribal, it's crazy that Nicole didn't play the shot in the dark. Like, if you're one of the 2 weak people and someone says, we're voting out a weak person who has no idea, you've got to assume that it's you, and no one would blame you for it. But I think Nicole was funny and silly, giving us a few memorable moments that will make this episode fun to rewatch in the future. And this episode was consistently good from start to finish. It's the day after Nicole's elimination. Kelly are in good spirits, feeling like they made their tribe stronger, but Sophie's still worried that Annie is a liability. Rejoice! Jeremiah found worms. Down the hatch. He's feasting and the other players come to watch him and eat the worms themselves. Hakuna Matata. Annie's loving playing the game. She doesn't even care if they go to tribal again, and she's beginning her campaign against Jake, telling everyone that Jake will beat them in the end, and calling herself the puppet master. Alex still likes Annie, but he's starting to get annoyed with her and her plans. Over on Uli, they've got crabs. Big ones. Savannah finds this giant beast. Shannon insists that they pray over the crab. Nate tells us he's uncomfortable as everyone prays and says vibes and call everything fire repeatedly. Rizzo calls the fire vibes cinema, and oop, he said the thing. This tribe should have been named Skibbity Gyat. Rizzo and Nate bond over a coconut, solidifying an alliance of Nate, Rizzo, Savannah, and Shannon. Savannah gives us a news report and confessional, saying that the island's princess has now turned into warrior princess. Back to giggly Hina in the studio. Hina have Matt doing magic tricks with the fire, and he forms a little alliance with Steven and Christina. They're looking to recruit a 4th ally. Matt pulls an MC. She tells him she's down, but she doesn't like that she's the last person who was asked, and feels like Matt is sus. MC runs to Sophie, telling Sophie that the Alliance is targeting her. They make a little duo alliance. Sophie is pissed and activated against the group. Back at Kayleigh, Puppet Master Annie continues to boss everyone around. Now about coconuts. They're annoyed with her, but she's pleased with their work. Jeremiah wants to make Annie feel good and then blindside her. Everyone fills Jake in that Annie's coming for him. She's in deep doo-doo with Jake. Jake is pissed, so he's retaliating by being the shoe bandit and hiding Annie's shoe. He hides her sneaker in a tree. Back at Uli, Sage shares she got a job as an Easter bunny. This tickles Shannon. She likes Sage, so the Alliance of Four decide at this point they'd prefer to keep Sage around over Jawan, who's always going out on his own and being sneaky. Jawan's been gathering sticks in a bag. Savannah thinks he's hiding advantages in his bag with the sticks, and when she finds out he accidentally used her bag, not his, to gather the dirt and sticks, she's even more mad. They all get clues, but Sage has to pee, so they wait. Tribes have to send one player on a journey. Matt, Jake, and Jawan are picked to go. On the journey, there are 3 baskets hanging. Players will have to throw coconuts in their competitors' baskets. When your basket falls, you're out. The last player with the basket hanging will win a reward, and the eliminated players will go back to camp with no penalty. They get started. They seem to be playing very nice and fair. No one's targeting anyone specifically. Matt is out first, followed by Jake, so Jawan wins the advantage. When the other 2 leave, Jawan is offered a choice. He can help himself by stealing a vote from one of the players he beat, or he can help his tribe by disadvantaging one of the other tribes at the immunity challenge. Back at camp, Jawan tells the group about his decision. He tells the truth, and that he ultimately chose the tribe advantage, which makes them all happy. I would have made the same choice in his position. At Kelly, Annie finds her shoe. The tribe wonders, who is the shoe bandit? Annie continues her anti-Jake campaign, which Sophie seems annoyed by, but Sophie also tells us that she's wary of the bromance between Alex and Jake. Elsewhere, Alex and Jake find the Beware advantage, and Alex opens it. He learns that when they lose an immunity challenge, a clue to a hidden immunity idol will be buried under the well. He won't have a vote at tribal until he finds the idol. Tribes head to their immunity challenge. Hina, of course, have a little tribe chant. It's no hoo ha la flor, but I'll take it. Players will climb over a cargo net, then a wooden jungle gym obstacle, climb to get their key, then unlock a gate, and work together to scale a wall and assemble a logo puzzle. The first 2 teams to finish will win immunity and reward. First place gets a big fishing kit, second place gets a teeny fishing kit, and the losers, sorry for you, you're going to tribal. Jeff also reveals that Jawan can disadvantage one tribe, forcing the tribe he chooses to run the challenge with 20 pounds of coconuts on their backs, and they'll have 10 keys instead of 1, with only one that works. Jawan gives the disadvantage to Hina. Sophie says it feels like a targeted shot. Jawan doesn't want to hear it anymore. He says, Jeff, let's play the game. Sage and Christina are chosen to sit out, and they get started throwing each other into the rope net, which is so much harder to do with the penalty coconuts. Rizzo tries and fails to do a backflip. Jeff calls it a cool fail. Disadvantage and all, tribes are neck and neck, and both Sophies have pretty hard falls. Kelly gets to a lead, getting the first key, followed by Hina. Jake helps the Kayleighs get to the puzzle, and heroically jumps to meet them. Uli and Hina undo their keys at the same time. They're neck and neck up the wall. As Hina gets to the puzzle slightly quicker, Kelly's lead is lost at this point. They've made no progress on the puzzle. Sophie and Alex are confused, and Annie is screaming useless directions from the sidelines. Jason leads Hina to a first place win against all odds, and Uli comes in second, sending Kayleigh back to tribal council. Sophie's really upset about this loss, and they head back to camp, all miserable. Now Annie feels like they need to keep Jake for challenges, so she's now focused on targeting Sophie for failing at the puzzle. Jake summons his magic mic acting skills to tell Annie what she wants to hear, but Jeremiah is laughing at Annie behind her back. Alex and Jake recruit Sophie to search for the immunity idol. They find a key chained to a cannonball. They have to bring the key to the box with the map to find it, so they're walking across the beach with the ball and chain, and Sophie finds the box. She chooses not to tell the guys. She wants to come back by herself and steal the idol. Jeremiah finds them, so they fill him in, and Sophie's plans are foiled when Alex finds the box and gets the immunity idol and his vote back. Jeremiah is annoyed that he was the last person to know about this, feeling on the bottom of the 4, and now Alex is feeling empowered that he found the idol. He's thinking about making a big move in the game. He shows the idol to Annie, saying he's down to target Sophie now. At tribal, Sophie says she feels like she's in the principal's office at school. Sophie and Jeremiah both struggle to find words to talk to Jeff. They're exhausted and hungry. Jeff is sympathetic. They want to start winning challenges so they can get some food. Alex tells Jeff it's time for a blindside and they need to be cohesive. Annie is smiley. She tells Jeff that trust doesn't exist in Survivor, but Sophie interrupts her to say that you have to trust people. Sophie says that she trusts she's in the majority. Sophie's rolling her eyes big time at Annie at this point. They get to voting and no advantages are played. Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote for Sophie, but the rest are for Annie, who's voted out 4-1, muttering unbelievable. So we lose Annie here, who last episode was painted as a liability in challenges and was the obvious next boot on Kayleigh if they were to lose. She does have that little alliance with Alex, which was the best thing she had going for her. In this episode, she breaks a cardinal rule of being the camp bossy person, thinking she's running the tribe like the Navy, while they all laughed at her behind her back. There was some hope for her in Alex showing her the idol, but now I'm feeling like everyone cooked that story up to prevent Annie from playing her shot in the dark. Again, I feel they made the right move in prioritizing strength, and I feel we got in these 2 episodes enough Annie any content. It was giving Debbie Winner light, the way she was screaming at them through the whole challenge to move the piece, only for them to shout back that the piece was immovable. The next morning, the bromance ponders their lives as they stare at the sunrise. Alex calls Kelly the lovable losers. Oop, he said the thing. Right and early. Sophie, Jake, Alex, and Jeremiah see themselves as a core four that now will have to break up if they go to tribal. Sophie and Jeremiah know that Alex has an idol and wonder if they could find another advantage for themselves. At Happy Hina, Christina braids Jason's hair. Jason tells us they all love each other, and he motivates the group to go out and look for the Beware advantage. MC and Steven get the chance to talk. Steven calls MC his closest ally. MC ultimately does find the advantage and tells Steven, learning that they'll get more instructions to find the idol after they lose immunity. At Uli, they're still vibing, cooking, and skibbity strategizing, but Sage and Jawan are still on the outs, and they know it, talking about it with each other. Sage tells us that all of her friends growing up turned on her, and being on the outs is bringing back old feelings. Rizzo encourages Sage, and Sage uses Rizzo's encouragement to build up the courage to tell Shannon that Rizzo and Savannah are close and a threat, with Savannah being Sage's main target. Shannon tells us that Sage is her low-key soul sister, but Shannon runs this whole conversation back to Savannah, so Savannah's agitated, and Sage, you in danger, girl. At Kaylee, Jake is still pondering life and staring into the horizon, thinking about winning the money and providing for his newborn son. As Jeremiah and Alex gag on a coconut, Jeremiah's out here eating anything. Then Jake gets bit by a snake. It's a whole thing. Alex goes back to camp and gets the manual, which we never see, showing us that Jake got bit by a poisonous snake. Egads! Alex thinks Jake is about to die, which now needs to be added to moments when Survivor sent us to commercial, not sure if a player was going to live. They take Jake to base camp, where the medics are happy that Jake's even breathing, and go to the hospital with the cameras and Jeff. The medics explain to Jeff that they don't think any venom got into Jake, and they patch him up and help him calm his anxiety, which appears to be through the roof, and rightfully so. Back at camp, players wait for Jake. Sophie gets emotional thinking about Jake and his family. Silver Fox Doctor tells Jake, but he still doesn't feel comfortable sending Jake back into the game, so Jake is medically deemed unfit to continue. And we lose Jake, who came into the season someone who everyone on the cast pointed out as a physical threat, and he was the greatest challenge threat on this cast. We learned in the premiere about his dad losing vision and his wife being very pregnant. He quickly gets into a strong place on his tribe, at the center of all the alliances with his bromance, his duo with Sophie, the core four. He was playing really well. There was the shoe bandit storyline that never really went anywhere, but was some silliness. Then, of course, the snakebite incident happens and pulls him from the game. I question the reasoning of Silver Fox Doctor, saying that Jake was fine, but he doesn't feel comfortable sending him back because he has a baby on the way. Like, if that was the case, why even let Jake go on the show to begin with? And they should have given Jake the choice. He would have chosen to go back, and with his life story and the snakebite story, he would have been such a jury threat. We're of course going to see him again on the show. They'll make a second chance season just to get him back. At least he gets some fresh oxygen and a handshake from Jeff. At the immunity challenge, Jeff tells everyone what happened with the snake and that it's 10 times more dangerous than a rattlesnake bite, and that Jake is okay but not returning to the game. Even the other tribes are upset, and the lovable losers dedicate this challenge to Jake. In their challenge, one player from each tribe needs to swim out, climb up and jump off a platform, cross a balance beam to get a key to unlock their puzzle pieces. Then the other two members will race out to join them and complete a puzzle. The first two teams to complete this will win immunity. Tribes are also playing for reward, with first place getting a big tarp and second place getting a teeny tarp. Shannon, Jawan, Rizzo, Sophie, Matt, and MC sit out. They get started with a crazy looking slow-mo jump from Alex, who takes the lead. Savannah messes up on the balance beam, setting Uli back when Savannah gets to the puzzle last, but the other Ulis crush this, leading to all three tribes working on the puzzle at the same time. Jason is again leading Hina in the puzzle, and Kelly once again is struggling as Sophie watches the boys mess up in misery. Hina comes in first, followed by Uli, which means another sad loss for Kelly. Everyone is miserable, even the winners don't celebrate out of respect, but Rizzo does through a great flip. Jake is healthy, and the silver lining is he made it home for the birth of his son. Back at camp, Alex just lost his bromance, and he's considering using his idol at this point. Sophie and Jeremiah are down to make an attempt at voting Alex out. They plan to tell Alex that they're voting for each other, then look for the idol the next day. Back on Uli, they agree that they're going to war against Hina, so they rally together to find the advantages. Rizzo finds the Beware advantage and tells the group, learning that they'll get further instructions later. Sophie and Jeremiah get to work on Alex, with Jeremiah saying he knows how to trick a Libra. Sophie spies on the boys talking, hearing Alex talk about voting her out freaks her out, but what else would Alex and Jeremiah be talking about in this moment? At Tribal, Jeff tells the Kellys that they seem rudderless. Alex tells Jeff about his idol, saying that both players were interviewing for a job as Alex's assistant in the game. Sophie's points are that she's loyal to everyone in her life, even her nail technician. Jeremiah tries to argue that he and Alex are like kindred spirits, while twice accidentally calling Alex Jake. Will Alex play his idol? None of them are sure. Jeff reminds them of the metaphor they've been talking about at the last few tribals, comparing their tribe to the shipwreck at Tribal. At this point, he's offering them tickets on his lifeboat. They get to voting, and Alex does play his idol for himself. Jeff reads the votes. There's one vote in that thing for Alex that doesn't count, and two for Jeremiah from Alex and Sophie. So we lose Jeremiah here, who had one of the bigger personalities on this cast. His eating worms was pretty amusing, and I like his laugh, but when he was laughing at Annie, it was maniacal. Starting the game, I think he should have tried harder to bond with Nicole and organize his cards more. He seemed pretty content putting himself on the bottom of the majority alliance, and ultimately put himself in the place to be voted out in this episode. Even if the snake incident never happened, Jake leaving just put him a wee bit forward on Wikipedia, but I'm not surprised about this boot at all. Sophie and Alex return to their snake-infested camp, having just voted together and solidified their bond. They feel battle-ready and experienced compared to the rest of the cast. Sophie hopes they're starting their underdog story. Well, their boat washes away, along with Sophie's shoe, meaning things aren't looking up just yet. The next day, players meet with Jeff. The hyenas chant. Their chant is not very good. Once again, it's no who ha la flor. Savannah calls them cringe. Jeff tells them the show was planning to swap at 14 anyway. Now it's a round sooner due to Jake's departure. Alex and Sophie spit on their buffs and bury them in the sand. Sophie shares their despair with the group, saying the ocean took her shoes and now she's wearing someone else's shoes. They draw new buffs, splitting into two tribes. No more Uli, just Hina and Kella. On Hina, there's Rizzo, Jawan, Nate, and Savannah from Old Uli, Matt and Jason from Hina, and Sophie from Kaylee. On New Blue Kaylee, there's Alex from Kaylee, Steven, Christina, MC, and Sophie from Hina, and Shannon and Sage from Uli. The challenge setup was a big trick. There's no challenge. Players head back to their new beaches, with the poor new Kayleys going back to that camp where they have nothing. MC calls this tragic, and I agree. At Hina, Sophie's thrilled to be at a camp that has stuff. She's drinking coconuts, making new friends, and fanning the flames between the other tribes. At Kaylee, players introduce themselves, with Shannon saying she's high vibe, Steven tells them he's a rocket scientist, and Sage shares that she collects pimples in a jar. Steven likes Shannon and Sage. Alex tells the group they were eating worms. Sophie S is not about that life. But hey, Sophie S is on the show. Back at Hina, Nate makes fire, the first fire that Sophie's seen at camp in 4 episodes. Sophie's plan is to bond with the 4 old Ulis and target Matt and Jason. Sophie and Savannah are queening out. They're the only girls on the tribe and want to work together. Sophie tells Savannah about Alex playing his idol and gains some trust. On Kaylee, Shannon leads the group in big meditation. Steven says Shannon is a shark in spiritual guru's body. He's considering targeting her if they go to tribal. Back at Hina, Nate is missing his kids. Sophie comforts him, giving him a big hug. Now she's got another person on her side. Savannah's trying to cover her bases, connecting with Jason and Matt. Jason tells Savannah that he's going to be loyal to his old tribe. In this moment, she appreciates his honesty. Savannah's interviewing the other players like a reporter, getting Matt to reveal that he has a background in finance. Then Savannah tells the other players that Matt has to be a sociopath to be successful in finance. On Kaylee, Shannon's meditation seems to have impressed Christina. Christina promises Shannon that she's not going home, and Christina shares that the next day will be the anniversary of her mother's death. Christina tells us the story about losing her mom to her addiction, breaking down to Shannon and in confessional. It's a sweet moment. Sage feels like Shannon is laying it on thick with her spirituality at the new camp, more than she was on their old camp. Sage doesn't feel like she can keep up with Shannon's level of performative energy, and pretty much admits Shannon is working harder to secure votes. Players head to their challenge, and Christina's got Sophie's shoe that washed up on shore. A moment of hope. In the challenge, players will boat out to get cubes. Then one player will transport 10 of the cubes over a balance beam, and the other players will work together to get the other 10 blocks across another balance beam. Finally, they all have to work together to stack their blocks into a tall tower. The himbo immunity idol is no more. Players are competing for 1 immunity idol and a bunch of fruit. Sophie S complains that the fruit is a terrible reward that won't satisfy her, which is a foot in mouth moment that makes her look bad to the other players. They get started. Hina gets to a lead with the boats and get to the balance beams first. Hina puts Matt on the balance beam, and MC is on the beam for Kayla. Matt royally fumbles multiple times on the balance beam. Where is Debbie Weiner when you need her?
I have a really good sense of balance.
MC pulls far ahead for Kaylee, and they get to stacking the blocks with Shannon on MC's shoulders and MC getting on Alex's back with Shannon on her shoulders. But Hina has all the tall people, putting tall Rizzo on top of tall Nate, so they decently catch up. But Kaylee are throwing each other around, working together to make an impressive formation, and they ultimately win immunity and reward. Christina kicks the stack in celebration, and the stack kicks Christina back. She dedicates this win to her mom. That's sweet. And Sophie S gets the fruit that she won't enjoy. So Hina are going to tribal, with Sophie heading to her 4th in a row, and Matt and Jason in deep doo-doo in the minority. Sophie is very confident that she'll be fine. Back at camp, Rizzo tells Sophie that he doesn't have his vote because of the beware advantage. Savannah leads the other Ulis in digging at the well. They find the clue for Rizzo, so Rizzo goes out and finds the idol in a treasure chest, and RIZGOD Rizgod gets his vote back, baby. Rizzo, Savannah, and Sophie debate between Matt and Jason as their target. Matt tells us that if you can make vodka out of a potato, he can make something out of this. And Matt starts his open campaign against Sophie, but he tells us he has a bigger plan in mind. He really wants to orchestrate a big blindside against Nate. Jason tells us he wants to play it safe, telling the other players that he's using his shot in the dark. Matt syncs up with Jawan, who he met on the journey. Matt proposes that he, Jawan, Jason, and Sophie vote for Nate. Jawan tells Matt that he's absolutely down, so Matt Matt is thrilled. Matt names their alliance the Section. Jawan cracks up in confessional, telling us that he's playing Matt. I love Jawan's flame socks. Jawan runs this all back to the old Ulis, and Nate tells us that Matt is dead to him. But Savannah wants to target Jason because Jason isn't open to working with the Ulis at all. At Tribal, the Ulis announce Sophie as an honorary Uli. Matt is surprised to hear this, realizing his plans are falling apart. Savannah expresses her concerns about Jason staying loyal to the old Hinas, and Nate is rightfully still annoyed that Matt is targeting him. Nate accuses Matt of playing a selfish game, saying Matt didn't care if Jason went home. As long as it wasn't Matt, they get to voting, and when Nate votes for Matt, Nate says, "Go kick rocks, bro." And oop, very late in the episode, Nate said the thing. In the end, no advantages are played. Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote in that thing for Nate, 2 votes for Jason, and 4 for Matt, which means we say goodbye to Matt, our airport baggage worker, who I thought was really funny and silly preseason, but through the editing, he's just barely on the show until this last episode, which is a shame given these 90-minute episodes. We've seen him forming an alliance on Hina with Christina, Steven, and MC that instantly fell apart when MC tattled about it to Sophie S, and that alliance, which was probably the most real gameplay that we saw in Hina, now is irrelevant, so we barely know anything about the Hina players at this point. He told us he has survival skills, and we saw him making fire for the tribe, but I know deep in my heart, there's hours of awesome footage of Matt spearfishing that got left on the cutting room floor because he's an early boot. I am feeling a bit resentful of the edit. What was Matt getting up to when the Kayleys were going through hell? In this episode, part of me wants to say he got screwed by the swap, but he had more than enough opportunity. His tribe was in the lead in the immunity challenge, and he cost them the win. Chat, if you were on Survivor and someone in the minority fell off a balance beam 3 times, you're gonna vote them out, right? Like, at that point, it seems like an easy vote. He attempts some strategy. I think going to the person you went on the journey with does make some rational sense, but the finesse was just not there. In fact, everything we saw Matt do strategically was ineffective, leading me to feel he just isn't a very good player, and ultimately he trusted way too many people.
You can't trust everybody.
And he gave some entertainment, but I think this was a good time for him to depart. Hina heads back to camp, where Jason is thankful that the tribe kept him, but he knows that he was the backup target, who also got some votes. Savannah tells us that she's living a survivor dream in the majority alliance on her tribe. She blames the old Hinas for starting a war with them with their cringe Hina chant, and she thinks it's obvious that Jason is the next to go. On Kelly, Shannon is trying to save herself. She pitches to Steven that they form a 6-person alliance with 2 players from each starting tribe. Steven is liking that the game talk is happening, but doesn't like being woken up by Shannon. Shannon continues to strategize throughout the day, talking to Alex, telling Alex that she's down to vote out Sage, giving Christina a big old hug, and also telling Steven that she's down to vote Sage out. Steven reports back to his #1 MC, telling her that Shannon is sketchy and using spirituality to connect with people. MC tells us she has respect for Shannon as a player and wants to play like her. Steven and MC warn Christina that Shannon is playing hard, which makes Christina question her game relationship with Shannon. On Hina, Jason is trying to make connections to save himself, bonding with Jawan about Pokemon. The Pokemon thing seems to work on Jawan, earning some favor, but Jawan is still down to ride with the old Ulis. But Jawan has accidentally stolen Savannah's water bottle, which, added on to filling her bag with dirt and sticks in a previous episode, has again pissed Savannah off. On Kelly, Sage is getting annoyed with Shannon, noticing her changing her demeanor around different people, telling us that Shannon is laying it on thick, and Shannon is a shark disguising herself as a seal. Sage overhears Steven and Alex talking about Shannon and inserts herself into their conversation, telling them that Shannon is a shark who clings to people's vulnerabilities. This turns into a little Shannon exposed party. At Hina, Rizzo teaches the group about mukbangs as a boat shows up to ruin their day. Sophie S. and Christina have invented fashion on this day. Kelly picks MC for the journey, but on Hina, Jawan rigs a rock draw to send Nate on the journey instead of Jason. On the journey, Nate and MC start out both having to work together to move sandbags across the beach. If they can't move all of their sandbags in time, they'll lose both their votes, so they start moving all the bags, which is so boring to watch. I can't imagine how boring it was to do. Nate calls MC the Terminator, telling us he can barely keep up with her, so he's trying to bond with her, talking about her Nigerian heritage, his kids, her being able to burp the alphabet. At the bottom of the bag pile, there's a clue telling them that there's an advantage hidden nearby. The first person to get the advantage wins it, and the other person who didn't get it has to continue to move the rest of the bags on their own to keep their vote. Nate suggests that they complete most of the bags together and then look for the advantage, but when he realizes that MC is probably going to get the advantage, he exaggerates the time that they have left, telling her they're running out of time, convincing her to finish the sandbags early, meaning they both keep their votes, no advantage is won, and this was all a waste of time. MC is proud of herself for completing the sandbags, telling us she used to be insecure and picked on for her strength, but now she's out here doing the thing. Back at camp, MC tells the Kayleys about the journey, and when Shannon leaves Sage alone with the group, Sage tells everyone that Rizzo probably has an idol, and that Shannon's been keeping it a secret from all of them, which makes them all trust Sage. Shannon underestimates Sage. She thinks Sage is clueless and just wants to talk about poop and pimples. Sage is over Shannon thinking she's stupid, telling us in reality, she's a wolf baby. And oop, Sage said the thing. Back at Hina, Nate tells the group about his journey and that he both won and lost nothing. Savannah continues to get pissed off at Jawan, feeling like he's eavesdropping on her conversations because he laid down in the shelter. They head to their challenge where players continue to lose the plot. The old Hinas now have another cringe chant. Now it's a Kele chant, and Shannon caresses the immunity idol. Players need to swim out to a cage in the water, untie rods and move sandbags from the bases so they can walk their heavy cages to the shore. Then one player will dig their way out of the cage, retrieving the ball as the players in the cage attempt to shoot the ball into 3 baskets. The first tribe to complete this wins immunity and reward. Jeff says he's confident they'll like the reward, which felt like a sly dig at Sophie S for not liking the fruit. They're playing for some chickens, gobble gobble. Christina sits out and they get started neck and neck when they get to their cages, as Christina thoroughly inspects the sit-out bench for an advantage that does not exist in that location. Kelly realizes that they're carrying a sandbag they don't need, and when they fix that, they get a big lead over Hina, but Hina dig deep in a slow-mo scream, which always helps, and give an impressive push to catch up to the Kayleys. Shannon is rebounding the balls for Kaylee and Jason for Hina. Rizzo conks Sophie in the head while shooting, and Alex leads the Kayleys to a narrow victory, securing the Kayleys immunity and the chickens. Oink oink, which means the Hinas are going to tribal, with this being Sophie's 5th tribal in a row. The happy Kayleys head back to camp with their chickens. Christina is afraid of the chickens. She wants them dead and on a plate. The girls go to the beach to mourn the chickens, leaving Alex and Steven to kill one. Offing the chickens is a whole thing. The dramatics. Who's gonna do it? How do we pull the feathers out? What hole does the milk come out of? Alex says people back home make fun of him for being too soft, and he's like, y'all see me now killing this chicken? And then everyone comes back to eat the chickens. Yum, yum, yum. Back at Hina, Sophie is rightfully feeling deflated and upset with another loss, but Rizzo and Savannah want to keep her around because she's loyal. Jason tells Jawan he wants to target Rizzo. Jawan feels like he's buttering Jason up so that Jason doesn't play his shot in the dark. Savannah tells Jason that he can be their connection to the old Hinas, and Savannah seems open to Jawan going home in this round, with a lot of talk about the Ulis not wanting to start a war with the Hinas. At Tribal, as usual, they complain about being tired and hungry. Jawan apologizes to Jeff at Tribal, feeling insecure about not being as well-spoken as his other tribe mates. Rizzo chimes in with a very well-spoken speech, restating how Jawan feels, and Jeff is like, you know what, Jawan? You're right. Everyone else is more well-spoken. Jason says he's not going down without a fight, and Jawan acknowledges that he relates to Jason. They both have glasses, like Pokemon, and he's felt on the bottom ever since he had his meltdown when he failed at making fire. Sophie says the tribal war is going to be like a tsunami. The strong players will survive, and the weak players are going to drown. So they get to voting, and no advantages are played. Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote in that thing for Rizzo from Jason, and the rest of the votes are for Jason. So we lose Jason here, our Pokemon-loving, bespectacled ex-Hina. So much of his story was him being an alternate, which I think started him off on the wrong foot, where I think it takes a lot of confidence to get on the show when you don't think you're going to, and everyone else has had a chance to mentally prepare themselves for really being on the show, which put him a step behind everyone else. While we saw him being good at puzzles and an asset to the Hinas, we never really saw him playing the game. He wasn't shown in any of the alliances on Hina. We were all left wondering where he was when the game talk was happening. He was partially screwed by the tribe swap. The numbers weren't there for him, but there were cracks in the Uli tribe. Sophie was able to instantly integrate herself into the core group in like an hour, and the Ulis did try to work with Jason, but he was not flexible and showed that he wouldn't be any help for them had they kept him. It was very obvious that had this tribe gone to tribal in this episode, he would be voted out. Why on earth would the Ulis give away their numbers advantage at this point? And while I do feel the Savannah Jawan beef is real, all of the strategizing this round seemed to be part of the ruse to get Jason not to play his shot in the dark. And I get that the show has to make us feel unsure about who's going home, but come on. The editing of this episode was quite creative. I blame Jason for casting a random vote for Rizzo instead of playing his shot in the dark. That was very bad play. And since we didn't see him play much, I'm left to assume he's not a very good player. The Hinas return to camp, declaring themselves a strong 5 to go to the end. Jawan sees Sophie B as the obvious target if they go back to tribal, but Savannah still can't get over the sticks in the bag and still wants Jawan out. The next day, they head straight to a challenge. No chant from Kelly this time, and no one is really surprised when Jason is voted out. Jeff says the weather is crispy. Then Alex tells Jeff about their winner-winner chicken dinner, which annoys Savannah, who must be the most annoyed person in Fiji. Jeff teases the group, telling them they could be going to Mergatory, but they're not. Jeff is splitting them into 3 tribes. The players are upset, and Jeff is loving it. The new tribes are Kelly, Sage, Shannon, Steven, and Jawan, Uli, Alex, Sophie, Nate, and Christina, and Hina, MC, Sophie, Rizzo, and Savannah. Christina is looking unwell during the tribe swap. At first, it seems like she's not happy with her tribe, but she lowers to the floor and she has to get checked out by the Silver Fox doctor, but she's fine. So they head to the reward challenge, where tribes have to push a heavy cart along a track, climb on the cart, use sticks to collect discs that they'll throw like frisbees to knock over 4 bamboo targets. First place gets grilled cheese sandwiches, salty, salty potato chips, iced tea, and chocolate brownies for dessert. Second place gets just grilled cheese. Last place, sorry for you, you get nothing. They get started, with Uli getting to a fast start, with even heatstroke Christina pushing that thing, and at some points, leading and directing the team. Kelly and Hina get to the disc throw first. Rizzo dominates this, winning the big reward for new Hina. Second place comes down between Alex and Steven, and Alex pulls it out. Good thing, my girly Christina needed a grilled cheese. Back at camp, the Hinas get their salty, salty chips. Sophie B is happy to finally get some food and be in the majority on the tribe. MC is the odd person out, but she still has her beware advantage. She has no vote for now and has a chance to get her vote back and an idol if they win immunity. MC tells Rizzo that Sage told her tribe that Rizzo has an idol. He doesn't really care if people know and thinks them being afraid of him makes him more powerful. Uli enjoy their grilled cheese. Christina's feeling a lot better, and she's got Sophie S and Alex from her last tribe. Nate is the odd person out on this tribe. Nate's plan is to lie to the group, telling them that he was working with Jason, but Sophie suspects that Nate is lying and tells us if they go to tribal, Nate is cooked. On Kelly, the chickens have escaped. Steven catches a chicken. Crisis averted, but not for the chicken. Steven is the odd person out on this team, with 3 original Ulis, but Steven bonds with Jawan over dad jokes and Marvel. As of now, Jawan tells us this will be an easy vote against Steven if they lose. On Uli, Alex has a beautiful moment of spearfishing in slow motion. Very nice. Christina tells Sophie S that they're going to use her name as a decoy. Sophie is pissed, so she decides she wants to team up with Alex and plot against Christina. Alex seems like he's down. On Kelly, Shannon likes Steven, but Shannon knows she needs to keep Sage close, clutching Sage's arm as they walk, but Sage tells us she feels like Shannon is a snake and still wants to give Shannon her karma. On Hina, Rizzo takes a stab at spearfishing, but he's a mess, calling his fins the devil's shoes. Oop, he said the thing. He gives up on fishing, but has a cool confessional in his snorkel. Sophie B finds an advantage and decides to keep it to herself, finding out she won the knowledge's power, so she can ask another player at tribal if they have an advantage or idol, and take it for herself. Later, players head to their immunity challenge, where they'll race across a cargo net to get sandbags, which they'll stack and climb on top of to get a bag of sticks and string. Then one player will use the sticks to build a pole to reach out and get a key that unlocks a table maze that they'll work together to finish. The first 2 tribes to win this will win immunity, and last place heads to tribal with Jeff. They get started fumbling over their cargo net and taking various approaches to stacking the bags. The messy stack is the best strategy, with MC getting the bag and giving Hina the lead. Now all 3 tribes are building their poles, which frustrates Christina. Sophie B nails her pole heist, getting Rizzo to the table maze first, followed by Kelly. Christina is a mess with this pole. She's got a flaccid pole she's swinging around willy-nilly. Christina does pull it together with her noodle pole. Now everyone's on the table maze. Rizzo and Savannah finish first, winning immunity for Hina, and after a few drops from Kelly, Sophie and Nate pull out a come-from-behind win for Uli, sending Shannon, Sage, Jawan, and Steven to tribal. Back at Kelly, five bets. Shannon blames Jawan for losing them the challenge, but she's excited to go to her first tribal. Shannon plots with Steven, telling Steven they need to target Jawan. She sees value in Steven being a connection to old Hina, but doesn't see a value in Jawan. He would just connect her to her old friends. So Shannon campaigns to Sage against Jawan as well. Sage is telling Shannon everything she wants to hear, but Sage still wants to get her revenge on Shannon tonight. So Sage rats Shannon out to Jawan, and they agree that Shannon should go, but they are worried about what their ex-tribe mates will think about this move. At tribal, Shannon is loving being there. She boasts that she was able to lead meditations and encourage the tribe to lead with their hearts. Sage tells Jeff she was hoping that they would have a yogi on their tribe, which is so obviously sarcastic, but Shannon is loving to hear it, dancing around with pride. Shannon says this week, actions are going to speak louder than words, as Sage stares daggers into Shannon's back. Steven acknowledges that he could be an easy vote this round, and that's his main contribution to the conversation. Jawan is giving some 2 cents, but it's all about Sage and Shannon. Shannon smugly grinning the whole time, and Sage very annoyed the whole time. They get to voting, no advantages are played, and Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote in that thing for Jawan, and 3 for Shannon, whose grin fades away. She gives everyone hugs on the way out, but Sage can only offer Shannon a handshake, telling her a hug would not be genuine. So we say goodbye to Shannon, our yogi, who I found to be all over the place in her preseason interviews, but I was pleasantly surprised with how quickly she formed connections on her starting tribe. On original Uli, we saw her getting in good with everyone, bonding especially with Savannah, which was a valuable alliance. Had the tribe swap not happened, there's a strong chance that she would make it to the end and give a memorable final tribal performance. The first swap was the beginning of the end. Her mismanagement of Sage was her clear downfall, and she was outplayed by Sage, who earned the trust of the ex-Hinas, leading into this swap, again being there with Sage, which was awful for her. And this round of gameplay was pretty predictable predictable for me. I did expect that Sage and Steven would stick together, and Jawan at that point isn't going to vote with Shannon. As a character, I find her more irritating than entertaining. If I were on a tribe with her, I feel like I'd just be Sage. Her methods of connecting with people are a bit obvious and over the top. She is using spirituality as a method of manipulation, which is slimy but allowed. She was mentored before the show by Boston Rob, but weirdly plays just like Coach. Overall, I leave off feeling more positively now than I did in the beginning. She has a good mind for strategy and is a decent player, but her presence on social media is a bit of a headache, and I'd be okay with her being a one-time player. Heading back to camp, Sage, Jawan, and Steven share in a big hug, feeling like a little alliance now. Jawan tells us these three are about to destroy the status quo heading into the merge. He wants to act like he's still with the Ulis and then turn on them. The next day at Uli, face crack of the century from this iguana. Players get tree mail saying they made it to the merge. Nate plans to rejoin and stay loyal to his original tribe mates. On Hina, MC still doesn't have a vote. She'll get a clue after the immunity challenge. To her idol, Sophie B still has her knowledge as power that she plans to use to stay loyal to the original Ulis. They're all heading to Kelly Beach, where Steven, Jawan, and Sage named their alliance Bottoms Up. Now everyone's on the same beach, hugging and cheering, but Bottoms Up are not excited at all. They're not looking forward to joining the group and explaining that Shannon is gone. When Shannon's not there, the original Ulis are predictably confused and upset. Bottoms Up tell their fairy tale, a fabrication that Shannon was being a monster, snapping at everyone, that Shannon was targeting Jawan. Basically, Shannon went crazy, and that Shannon told everyone about Rizzo's idol. The original Ulis are buying the story. At this point, Savannah's decided to forgive Sage and Jawan for annoying her in the past, but Sage isn't buying Savannah, buttering her up. She still wants Savannah out. They get a chest and a clue for a little mini challenge. There are keys scattered in the jungle. The first person to find the key that opens the chest will win an advantage in the next challenge. So players run around the jungle and waste time because these have to be 90-minute episodes. In the end, Sage wins the advantage and a golf clap from the group. The hills are alive with the sound of chickens, and Rizzo gets to work on bringing the Ulis and Sophie B together to make the majority. Sophie B still wants to work with Alex, though she tells us she feels more loyal to the Ulis than to Alex. So Sophie wants to bring Alex onto her side, but Alex tells us he just wants to play the middle. Savannah names the chickens teriyaki, Kentucky Fried, and General So, nothing is stopping her from eating these chickens. She even kills the chicken herself with confidence. Elsewhere, Sage tells Sophie S that the old Ulis are targeting her, so Sophie's worried and wanting to win Dat immunity, which brings us to Dat challenge. There's big balls in the sand. Jeff addresses the two Sophie situation, forcing them to rename themselves. They decide that Sophie B is now Soph, and Sophie S gets to stay Sophie. This somehow didn't feel like a mutual compromise, and I'll stick with their initials. Players have officially merged, but not everyone is getting the merge feast. They'll split into two groups. In part 1 of today's challenge, the two groups will face off. The winning team will earn the merge feast, and that winning team will move on to part 2 to compete for individual immunity. Jeff unveils the immunity necklace that Julie Chen would wear to host Big Brother. She loves a big old tooth accessory. Jeff also teases the group that there are spots open on season 50, a random thing to say at this time, but okay. Sage's advantage is she gets to sit out of part 1, automatically winning reward, and gets to play in round 2. For part 1, teams need to dig up their giant balls, maneuver them through obstacles, climb up the ball onto the platform, and solve a word puzzle. We have yellow team, both Sophies, Rizzo, Steven, and Nate, and blue team, Christina, Savannah, Alex, MC, and Jawan. They get started with blue getting to a lead in their ball roll, leading the whole way right to the puzzle, but eventually both teams are working on the puzzle. From the sidelines, Sophie B figures the puzzle out, allowing the yellow team to pull ahead and win part 1 and the reward feast. Jeff is trying to tell us that yellow won by a hair, but blue was nowhere near right. So Sophie's B and S, Sage, Rizzo, Steven, and Nate will move on to part 2, where they'll be balancing on a beam while balancing a ball on top of their poles. It'll get more difficult as they go, and the last player standing will win immunity. Rizzo tells Jeff he feels like $1,000,000, and they get started. Rizzo's stirring the pot with it, which proves to be ineffective when he's first to drop, followed by Sage and Nate. Next to drop is a hefty bead of sweat off Sophie S. Then Sophie B drops out, leaving Sophie S and Steven, the last two standing. Jeff puts them on hard mode, and Steven drops quickly, giving Sophie S individual immunity, which she dedicates to her mom. That's nice. Back at camp, it's a great day for Sophie S. She's got immunity and a reward that's not fruit. And Sage farts, which feels important to the plot. Nate tells us that Sophie S was a target, but now she's off the table, and they need to pick a different Hina to target. The challenge losers get no reward, but MC has a chance to look for her idol, finding a map to a key that will unlock her little treasure chest, but Savannah catches her looking, and when MC spots the key, Savannah tries to throw herself on top of the keys, which fails. There's a lot of keys for MC to try. While Savannah supervises and talks MC's ear off, MC tells us that Savannah is scary. Eventually, Savannah leaves MC alone, and MC does get her idol and her vote back. Later, Iguana and Fly get freaky. Sophie S catches Rizzo and Savannah scheming. Sophie and Christina think Rizzo may play his idol for Savannah, so they're leaning toward putting their votes on Nate. Sage thinks they should still target target Savannah. Savannah tells Sophie B that MC found the idol, which is good news for Sophie, since she can steal the idol with her knowledge as power. The Ulis decide to target Steven. Jawan is not down to target his bottoms-up ally. Rizzo also tells Jawan that he's not playing his idol tonight, which tempts Jawan to put the vote on Rizzo. Christina and Sophie B annihilate the Ham Mock. The Hinas are all over the place. They can't decide on a target, and heading to Tribal, dear listeners, I had no idea what was about to happen. So they head to Tribal, a first for Christina, MC, and Sophie S. Talk is general chit-chat about the merge, giving Jeff non-answers. Jawan returns to his metaphor about horror movies, saying he feels like he's trying to avoid being the next on the slasher's kill list. They talk about idols. Rizzo whips his idol out, telling the group he plans to play it tonight, and maybe not for himself, and that he's wearing red because blood will be drawn tonight. Ooh, he said the thing. They talk again about Survivor 50, with Savannah telling Jeff she definitely wants to be there and is willing to make a splash to make it happen. They vote, and when Jeff asks for advantages, Rizzo does nothing. MC stands up and plays her idol on herself, and Rizzo still doesn't play his idol. Jeff reads the votes, and there's 4 votes in that thing for Steven, but ruh-roh raggy, there's 7 for Nate. So we have to say goodbye to Nate, who there was a lot of buzz about preseason. Being this big name Hollywood producer, I was interested to see how that would play out, with Jawan being such a Marvel fan, and was disappointed that he never shared about his career with the other players. He ends up being a loyal number for Uli the whole game, to the end here, in this episode, where he's going to stay loyal, even though he had no protection from his allies. And Rizzo seemed to be putting on a show with the idol to protect he and Savannah only, which did shovel the votes onto Nate, though of course they didn't know that Jawan and Sage were gonna flip. Again, really disappointed that he never bonded with Jawan, which makes that probably his biggest mistake, as there was such an obvious opportunity there, and the lack of a bond was the reason that he went home. I found Nate to be a bit of a boring character, who I don't really need to see again, but did find him pleasant when he was talking about his family. The 10 Loatus head back to camp, with Jawan happy to have pulled off the biggest move of the season so far, which left Savannah, Rizzo, and Sophie B on the outs. Sophie B apologizes to Steven for voting for him, and Alex reassures Sophie B that Savannah and Rizzo are the biggest targets. Sophie is open to leaving the Ulis behind to save herself. MC just played her idol, which annoyed Jawan. He feels like MC didn't trust that he would stick to the plan. Jawan is still playing double agent with both alliances. After he talks to Rizzo, Rizzo encourages Savannah to try to forgive and work with their old allies. So Savannah goes on a charm offensive, being sweet to everyone around camp. The next day, survivors paint their flag, which seems like a fun activity. This is a freaky ass bird. Players go on a hunt, looking for MC's re-hidden idol. Christina is tired and over the bugs, but Christina finds a hidden immunity idol with Steven and Alex as witnesses. Christina trusts the guys, but Alex tells us he's open to throwing Christina under the bus to save himself. Steven and Jawan celebrate their victory at the vote, discussing their next target. Jawan wants Savannah out, but he's scared of her wrath. On the beach, Sage opens up to Sophie B, saying that Savannah's mean to her, and named the chicken General Sao to spite her. Sophie empathizes with Sage, which makes Sage feel better, but Sage tells us if Savannah's gonna be a mean girl, she could be a mean girl too. Savannah tells us that Sage is playing the victim, and Savannah breaks down in confessional, saying she feels like a loser, and it reminds her of times when she was bullied at work. She opens up to Steven about this, and seems to have a new motivation after this conversation. Players head to their challenge, where Jeff asks Sophie for that necklace back, because that thing is up for grabs. Players will stand on footholds between walls, holding on for as long as they can, but the twist is, they'll be split into 2 groups. The group that has the player that lasts the longest will all win immunity and reward of deli food, which is just not a good reward. The one player who lasts the longest will also win an advantage. The losing group will head to Tribal and vote someone out. The teams are blue, Sage, Rizzo, MC, Jawan, and Sophie S. Against yellow, Steven, Christina, Sophie B, Alex, and Savannah. They get started, with no one doing really badly here, all making it past the second level, but Christina drops first, with a Homer Simpson "no" on the way down, followed by Alex, Rizzo, MC, and a rare Survivor moment, an entire Hail Mary prayer from Sophie B turned into an epic sequence. The show was like, "Hail Mary, full of grace." Jawan, Sophie B, and Sage drop, coming down to a showdown between Savannah, who's been pretty calm, and Sophie S, who's struggling big time. This goes on for a while, but Savannah eventually pretty unsurprisingly wins, earning immunity and reward for her group, an advantage for herself, and sending Rizzo, Sage, MC, Jawan, and Sophie S to Tribal Council. Savannah celebrates, saying she won this on her anniversary, which is nice. The winners will return to camp, and losers will go to Uli Beach. They won't be reunited with the other group until after the vote. Back at Uli Beach, Sophie S is feeling bummed after not saving her group in the challenge. She concocts a plan for everyone to vote for Rizzo and to use Sophie's name as a decoy so Rizzo doesn't use his idol. Jawan brings the fake plan to Rizzo, who hears him out on it and seems down for it. Sophie fills MC in on the plan, telling MC that she plans to throw a stray vote at Jawan in case Rizzo plays the idol, but MC feels indebted to Jawan after he followed through on his word from the last round. So MC runs Sophie's plan right back to Jawan, who now feels like Sophie S is a threat to his game. Back at Loatu, the winners enjoy their reward. Alex is hoping that the losers vote Sophie Sophie S out, Savannah gets her advantage. She gets the power of a vote at tonight's tribal. She'll be able to join the losers at camp, where she'll be able to strategize, join them at tribal, and at tribal, she can choose to either vote or save the extra vote for a future tribal. Back with the losers, Jawan tells Sage about Sophie S's plan. They consider flipping on Sophie, but Sage runs back to Sophie, telling her that MC ratted her out to Jawan, and this is such a mess. Sophie attacks this head on, confessing to Jawan and apologizing to him for what she did. Enter Savannah, riding in, saying she's heading over like hot Grim Reaper, and oops, she said the thing. They really do treat her like the Grim Reaper, especially finding out that she gets to come to tribal. Savannah tells Rizzo that she can vote or save her vote. Rizzo's excited with the idea of keeping both his idol and the extra vote in the game through this round. After learning that the immune players see Sophie as a threat, Rizzo decides he wants to target MC instead of Sophie. Rizzo approaches Sophie to bring her in on the plan. Sophie's kind of annoyed that Rizzo, who she thinks should be going home, is trying to control the vote, but she does consider it. Sage and Jawan still want to vote for Rizzo, but Savannah showing up with an unknown power makes them consider Sophie and MC as targets. As they all head to tribal, where Nate shows up feeling himself in his crisp Fedora hat. Savannah tells the group that she gets a say in the vote. Sophie's nervous, feeling like she went from feeling safe to being at risk. Sophie says she feels like it's back to original tribe lines. Rizzo feels like people could have been not bringing up his idol to blindside him, but Sophie chimes back in, saying that tonight's vote will be between she and MC. MC tells the group that Sophie is going to keep winning challenges and voting with the hyenas. Sophie pitches that she's a huge threat and they should keep her and use her as a shield. Before the vote, MC pulls Jawan, whispering to him, which turns into more whispering. Eventually, everyone's whispering. I would have appreciated some subtitles on the whispers. No clue what they're talking about. Anywho, they get to voting. Savannah chooses not to vote and save her extra vote for the future, and Rizzo doesn't choose to play his idol. Jeff reads the votes and there's one vote in that thing for Sophie, and the rest are for MC. So we lose MC here, who starts the game off as one of two alternates. I found it puzzling that they made such a big deal about Jason being an alternate, but never brought it up for MC. But she did a better job acting cool about it, blending right in with her tribe, and becoming an asset in challenges, setting a record for the most first place challenge wins in the pre-merge ever. Of the original hyenas, she got some of the most screen time. We saw her bonding with Steven, finding the beware advantage. She got some personal story with her being insecure about being athletic growing up, then coming to her own. Strategy-wise, there were mistakes, not trying to find the advantage on the journey and letting Nate steamroll her into ending the journey early, getting caught looking for the idol, then playing the idol when she really didn't need to. Had she kept the idol, she could have played it here when she needed it, and playing the idol affected her relationship with Jawan. While flawed, I don't think she's a bad player. I think it's a stretch to envision her doing what it takes to win Survivor. Her impressive physical and challenge ability make her a better fit for something like the challenge, which I could see her kicking ass on, and would prefer to see her move onto the challenge than a return to Survivor. And I think there's a really silly side to her that we got glimpses of in Confessional that make me feel like she'd be a hoot on a bus with Johnny Bananas and CT. Last week's challenge winners wait back at camp for the losers to join them, expecting Rizzo or Sophie S to be voted out, but when MC is not there, they're gagged and gooped, especially Christina, who really needed MC in the game. Rizzo and Christina both still have idols. Sophie B still has the knowledge is power that no one knows about, and Savannah tells Sophie B that she now has an extra vote. Rizzo, Sophie B, and Savannah agree that they're the most powerful group in the game and lock in a final 3. The next day, players paint a memorial to MC. Nothing says we love you like a heart. Steven pulls Sage, telling her that Christina found the idol, asking Sage not to tell Jawan, as only Steven and Alex know the secret. Sophie S works on new bonds with Sophie B and Savannah, feeling like that's the rational path forward, away from her allies who are upset that she wasn't voted out. Alex also feels like he's in the middle and is trying to decide which way to go. Rizzo notices Alex trying to play the middle, and Rizzo tells us if you're loyal to all, you're loyal to none. And oop, he said the thing. Rizzo says that kind of game is only acceptable if he's the one playing it. Players head to their reward challenge, where they'll split into 2 teams of 4. Using a giant cube, they'll climb up and collect sandbags, then use the sandbags to knock over a high up ore that holds their 3 rings, which they'll then have to throw back up onto the ore. The first team to land all 3 rings will win reward. Jeff sensually explains they'll be playing for fried chicken, French fries, soft drinks, and for dessert, cheesecake. They split into blue, Sophie S, Christina, Alex, and Savannah, and yellow, Sage, Jawan, Steven, and Rizzo. Sophie B isn't picked and gets to bet on a team. She chooses yellow, and if yellow wins, she'll get reward too. They get started, with yellow getting to a quick lead that they carry up to the ring toss, but Alex has the finesse on those rings, winning reward for the blue team. He, Savannah, Christina, and Sophie S. Christina offers up her reward to Jawan, which he does humbly accept, and they trade places. Sophie S wasn't giving up that reward. She says she's taking off her shorts so she doesn't hulk out through that waistband. She's ready to hit this chicken. I thought the chicken looked lovely. We learn more about Jawan, feeling like he's always had to provide for people at home, which made it difficult for him to accept the reward from Christina. Sophie S continues to be open about her resentment towards her old alliance, and while the reward winners seem to agree that they're all on the bottom, Jawan tells us he doesn't feel that way and that he's a shark out for blood. Back with the losers, Steven is disturbed, having killed too many chickens, so he doesn't want to eat any more chickens in general. Sage and Christina agree that they still want to target Rizzo and Savannah, with Christina calling Savannah mean girl energy in confessional, and Sage calls Savannah a blackhead she wants to pop and put in a jar. Christina fills Sophie B in on the plan to split votes on Rizzo and Savannah, which Sophie B agrees to and likes that people are coming to her with information, but she's obviously not down for this. And the second Savannah comes back, Sophie tells her about the split vote plan. In return, Savannah reveals to Sophie B that she's been lying about her job and that she used to be a reporter, a secret Sophie commits to keeping. Rizzo is still set on Alex as his target, spreading all over camp that Alex is playing the middle, which Jawan takes note of, but Jawan still wants to target Savannah. Heading to their challenge, Jeff reposts that idol, cause that thing is up for grabs. Foot lovers rejoice. Players will be using their feet to push against a disc, keeping pressure so their disc doesn't fall. The last man and woman standing will both win immunity. They get started. Rizzo's out first, followed by Christina. Steven hits them with some space facts, which is turning the show into an educational program against my will. Steven's facts eliminate Sage from the challenge. Jeff tells them they can't hold onto their platform anymore, and they're all like, what the hell do I do with my hands? Alex licks the air, which is not an effective strategy, as he's out next, followed by Sophie B and Jawan, giving Steven individual immunity for the men, and it comes down again to Savannah, who hasn't moved and isn't breaking a sweat, and struggling Sophie S, and again Savannah wins individual immunity, killing the group's split vote plan. Players return to camp to scramble, with Rizzo's group now set on targeting Alex. Steven tells Sophie S and Christina they should split the votes on Rizzo and Sophie B. Sophie S gets both plans and tells us she'll decide later. Jawan warns Alex that he's Rizzo's target, so Alex gets to work, calling in favors to swing some votes against Rizzo. Heading to Tribal, eyes are on the decision of Sophie S, Jawan, and Sage, who are up in the air and will decide the outcome. At Tribal, bring in our jurors, Nate in his crisp hat and MC looking resplendent. Jeff doesn't even know where to start with this chaotic dynamic. Savannah takes credit for the day's chaos, saying her winning immunity forced the group to play the game. Steven offers Jeff two options for a metaphor, which titillates Jeff, only for him to be disappointed when there was only one real metaphor about space available. But who cares about this? Players are heading to the vote, no advantages are played, and Jeff reads the votes. There's votes in that thing for Rizzo, Sophie B, and Alex, but in the end, by a vote of 6-2 to 1, Alex is voted out of the game, with Christina and Steven having voted for Sophie B, and Alex voting for Rizzo. So we lose Alex here, who preseason I felt was really all over the place, and I was impressed with him on Original Kaylee, where he was right in the center of the tribe with his bromance with Jake. They had Sophie B on side, he had connections to Annie. Through the first 2 or 3 episodes, I felt he was playing the best game in the whole cast, but the dismantling of Kaylee was terrible for him, and when he was split from Sophie B, she formed bonds that were way stronger than theirs, and at the merge, Sophie tries to offer him a ticket to join the Ulis in that alliance, but he doesn't commit, wanting to play the middle, which would ultimately become the reason he's targeted here just a few rounds later. Overall, he exceeded my expectations, which weren't much, and he doesn't play terribly. He's a pretty careful player, but on a season where some players were playing hard and working extra hard to be entertaining, he gets run circles around by all metrics, and I'd be surprised if we saw him again, but there is potential there that if he played again, he could do well. Back at camp, Rizzo is proud of himself and his alliance for taking out Alex, who he says was obviously playing in the middle, telling us that's why they call him Riz God. Christina is very upset and terrified she's the next target, but she's got her idol that can keep her safe. Rizzo, Savannah, and the Sophies weigh out their options between Steven and Christina, with Steven being a more juicy target for them as just the better player. The next morning, Sage confides in Jawan that Christina has the idol, which Steven asks Sage to keep a secret. Sage asks Jawan to keep the secret that she herself could not keep. Sage hopes the group thinks they're talking about farts and not the game. The group does not think they're talking about farts. Jawan is not happy that Steven didn't tell him the secret himself, and when Jawan brings up Christina to Steven, Steven continues to lie, telling Jawan that he doesn't think Christina has an idol, so now Jawan is starting to want Steven gone. Christina continues to be upset about the vote and feeling betrayed by Sophie S, Jawan, and Sage, breaking down to Steven at the water well, saying she wants to go home. Steven tries to talk Christina off the ledge and get Christina's head in the game so they can work together to use the idol to take Savannah out and give the other alliance a huge dose of bamboozle, and oop, Steven said the thing. Players head to their challenge, where Steven and Christina both express unhappiness to Jeff. Christina has a major meltdown here, crying, saying she wants her mom, who she's still grieving. Jeff gives Christina the space to talk about her mom, and Jeff really helps Christina to get straight here, showing how great he is as one of the best hosts on TV. For their reward challenge, players will be divided into 2 teams, navigating an obstacle course over water, dive underwater to get their buoys, which they'll swing on tethers, like ball in a cup, up into their baskets. The first team to 3 baskets wins the reward. They'll be playing for a trip to the sanctuary where, allegedly, good things happen. The teams are blue, Sophie S, Sage, Steven, and Sophie B, and yellow, Jawan, Christina, Rizzo, and Savannah. They get started. After a cannonball from Rizzo, Jawan tiptoes across the balance beam like Debbie Wenner in her dreams, but Rizzo sucks at the balance beam, which lets the Sophies get a lead for blue. That blue continues to extend when Christina struggles on the balance beam, nearly falling but pulling herself up in a miraculous miraculous recovery. In the end, it's decently close, but Steven, Sage, and both Sophies win reward in a dominant victory from start to finish. Back at camp, Rizzo takes the blame for their loss in the challenge. He's very upset, crying, hungry. Jawan decides to try to get the losers some snacks, so he heads out to fish and comes back with a teeny fish. At the sanctuary, winners get burgers and dogs. Sophie S is loving that food. She thinks these calories are going to help them to win immunity. Sage tells Sophie S that she wants to target Savannah to break up her little alliance while they can. Meanwhile, the losers decide to start a boy band, calling it Three Boys on a Bench, that they're really proud of, but not the best musical moment. When the tribe reunites, the original Ulis and Sophie B decide to target Steven, but Sage is not down, telling us she's lying to their face. Her plan is to get 5 votes on Savannah, with she, Steven, Jawan, Christina, and Sophie S. Sage brings this back to Sophie S, who feels in the middle of everything, telling us she's running the game and is on her way to becoming a millionaire. We'll see about that. They head to their immunity challenge. They'll need to climb through a seesaw net, then balance puzzle pieces on a rod across a balance beam seesaw, then complete their survivor puzzle. The first player to solve their puzzle wins immunity. But of course, Jeff has to pull out the bag of rice, offering them the rice if they can get 3 people to sit out of the challenge. Nobody's down, and Savannah calls out Jeff for not wanting to negotiate at the negotiation, and Jeff doesn't really take this well. He just ends the negotiation, settling on this just being a waste of TV time. They get started. This rope teeter-totter looks scary and dangerous, like a ride at the county fair, but I'd ride it. Players start bringing their pieces across the beam, with Steven going big and stacking multiple pieces at a time, letting him get to his puzzle first, which gives him a lead, but Sophie S gets in the zone, hitting that puzzle in a crazed manner. Honestly, Sophie gobbled that puzzle, shutting everyone out and winning that immunity and a spot in the final 7. Back at camp, Sage is happy that Savannah lost immunity, giving her the opportunity to finally take that shot and organize the votes to take out Savannah. Sage hints to Sophie S about Christina's idol, with Sage telling us her goal is to get Savannah out and have all of the idols flushed at this tribal. Sophie S is over Jawan and Sage, and they're double dealing, so she rats this plan out to Rizzo, Savannah, and Sophie B, telling them all about Sage's plan and Christina's suspected idol. On the other side, Steven and Christina plan to put votes on Savannah and have Christina play her idol on Steven to scare Rizzo into playing his idol as well. Savannah asks Christina point blank who she's voting for, which scares Christina. Christina tells Savannah that she needs to think about it and that she doesn't like Savannah's directness. But that's not a good sign for Savannah, and Savannah also senses that Jawan is lying to her, so she's thinking she needs to use her extra vote. And after the sketchiness, Sophie B and Savannah consider flipping their vote onto Jawan or Sage. And Sophie B seems to be considering using her knowledge as power at this point, but they need Sophie S's vote, so Savannah shows Sophie S her advantage and gives Sophie S major input on their decision of who they're voting out to keep Sophie S on their side. Update: there is a very realistic dead skeleton at Tribal Council. Cindy, this is Bones. At Tribal, Rizzo, Savannah, and Sophie S all seem excited to make big moves, but Christina says everyone's liars and she doesn't know what the plan is. Rizzo points out that Christina and Steven are the easy votes this time, as the only 2 people on the outs last round. Savannah shares she's been reading people's body language and she could tell who she can't trust. Jawan starts going on about how the person who's going home is going to be blindsided. Savannah is animated, reacting, clearly thinking that Jawan is obviously talking about her. They get to the vote, and when asked for advantages, Christina gets up and plays her idol for Steven, and Rizzo rises, asking Jeff if he can speak to the class, saying this vote will be telling as he plays his idol for Savannah, but the idol he plays for Savannah is fake. Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote in that thing for Rizzo from Christina, 3 votes for Savannah from Steven, Christina, and Sage, and 5 votes for Jawan from Sophie S, Sophie B, Rizzo, and 2 from Savannah, which means by a vote of 5 to 3 to 1, Jawan is voted out. Jawan gives a teary goodbye to Sage, and we give a teary goodbye to Jawan, who I always had high hopes for. He starts the season off giving this epic speech about Survivor being like a horror movie, that in Act 1 you're trying to survive, but in Act 2 you are the monster, which made me feel was going to be his story, but I guess they just like the quote. He starts the game off okay, teaming up with some people, but is quickly kicked out of his alliance, and is further ostracized from the main Uli group for his meltdown at camp and messing with Savannah's stuff. So we track this rivalry between them that continues through the merge, where ultimately it comes down to the standoff in the boats between he and Savannah, where he comes up just short. He was playing well from the swap, where the bottoms up alliance turned on Shannon and were controlling a good part of the game, though the fact that Steven didn't trust Jawan to tell him about Christina's idol shows that that alliance wasn't holding up well. And had he not gone here, I don't think there was much runway for him to make it to the end or win a jury vote, but he could have given a good performance at Final Tribal. I like that he's down to play and gives good confessionals and wouldn't mind a return in the future. Following Jawan's elimination, players return to camp, with Christina feeling bamboozled. She just wasted her idol. Rizzo tells Christina he was planning to play his fake idol first to get her to play hers, but since she did it first, he decided to play it anyway to make a show in front of the jury. Sophie S is pleased with how Tribal went, telling us that she was on the outs, feeling like a tag along with Steven and Christina. She explains herself to them, and they're understanding and still seem to want to work with her. Sage is pissed at Sophie S. She She's mad they handed Savannah $1 million, that Jawan is gone, that Sophie was smiling when Jawan left, Sage feels screwed, and now she wants Sophie S gone. The next day, whoa mama, that's a big spider. Rizzo and Sophie B are happy with their new ally Sophie S, agreeing that the next target should be Steven, but Sophie B is planning ahead, telling us she plans to flip on Rizzo and Savannah eventually, she's just not sure when. So she starts working on her relationship with Sage, telling Sage that she's willing to flip. Sage thinks Sophie is lying, but she's still considering it. She doesn't have many options at this time. A boat shows up with a clue telling them that one person needs to step up for a strenuous journey. They are all twisted over the word strenuous and don't want to go, but Steven steps up and heads on the journey. While he's gone, Sophie S and Savannah agree to target Steven, but are both rightfully worried that he'll get an advantage. When the Sophies meet, they consider turning on Rizzo and Savannah if Steven is safe, with a little pinky swear. How cute. On his journey, Steven is told there's an advantage in his pot that he can't smash without the combination. To get the combination, he has to run around this whole island and memorize the numbers. If he doesn't do it before the tide rises, the pot will fall into the ocean and he'll lose his vote. He gets started, and this does look strenuous and dangerous as he falls on his booty, but he persists. Look at him jump from boulder to boulder. The technique. I had no doubt that he would complete this, and he gets back with tons of time left, winning the advantage. His advantage is a block a vote. Before going to tribal, he can decide which player to block. When they go to vote, they'll find out they can't, which is a lame reward considering the amount of work he just did, but Steven is really proud of himself, as he should be. Back at camp, players struggle to catch these chickens, but they fail. Rizzo gets startled by the chicken, saying it was caw-cawing in his face. They will go hungry, as their hunt is interrupted by Steven, returning, who is exhausted, telling them the whole story, and that he won an advantage, but not telling them what the advantage is. Steven sees that Rizzo is stressed about the advantage, and he's happy to see it, but Rizzo suspects that Steven has a steal a vote, which would let him turn the numbers 4-3 the other way. Sophie B isn't worried, telling us if she wanted to, she could just steal the advantage from Steven. Rizzo tells Steven that he's suspicious Steven has a steal a vote, which Steven is happy with. Steal a vote's better than what he has, so Rizzo is telling Steven he wants to work with Steven this round to keep himself safe. They get to their challenge. My first thought was, ooh, Pirates poop deck, but those are crow's nests. Jeff lets Steven do a Jeff impression, which was funny and kind of good, but Jeff takes back immunity from Sophie S. That thing is up for grabs. In their challenge, they'll be connected to a rotating spool, going back and forth to get letters. To spell immunity, stacking the letters on a rotating disc that spins as fast as they're moving. If their letters fall, they have to start over. The first player to spell immunity and get back to their platform wins immunity and reward, which Jeff essentially explains: spaghetti, spaghetti with meat sauce, pesto, a garlic bread, and a little tiramisu. They get started with Steven getting to an early lead. This one doesn't look as hard as the usual stacky challenge with the tipping tables. Steven's stack gets all crookedy, but he still wins immunity, with Sophie B being the only player to drop their stack in this whole challenge. Steven gets to choose 2 players to join him for spaghetti. He chooses Christina and a very emotional Rizzo. They go to the reward. I hate spaghetti, and I hate watching people eat it, but Steven is thrilled, telling us everything is coming up Steven. Rizzo tells Steven and Christina that he has the idol, and suggests that they work together to target Sophie S. Rizzo promises them he's voting for Sophie. This makes Steven feel comfortable, but Christina tells us she still wants to get Savannah out. Back at camp, Sophie S continues to plot against Savannah and eat with her axe. She approaches Sage and Sophie B about voting Savannah out, but Sage is even surprised with herself that she doesn't want Savannah out at this point. She wants Sophie S gone to get revenge for Jawan. And Sage, Sophie B, and Savannah agree they need to go against Sophie S. When everyone's reunited, Rizzo's happy to hear that pretty much everyone is talking about voting for Sophie S, calling it the cherry on top, and ooh, he said the thing. Sophie S continues to rally for votes against Savannah, thinking she has Sage and approaching Steven and Christina. Sophie B is not sure how to vote, but she trusts her gut that's been right so far. At Tribal, Sage gets emotional seeing Jawan on the jury. Steven talks about his strenuous journey, openly saying he won an advantage, and Christina's pretty open, telling Jeff she strongly dislikes Savannah, but Savannah plays it off and has a good attitude about it. They vote, Steven doesn't use his block a vote, and Rizzo doesn't play his idol. Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote in there for Savannah from Sophie S, and the rest unanimous for Sophie S. So by a vote of 6-1, we lose Sophie S here, which makes it so much easier to recap the show with only one Sophie, my preseason winner pick, who had no presence in the premiere, so I never had any faith that she could win the game. But we're shown in episode 2 that her tribe is targeting her, which she's pissed about. Then she's pissed about getting fruit as a reward. So there's these little character moments that hint to us that the other players aren't loving her. I've also seen rumors that she was involved in the preseason Hina cheating, which could be part of why the Hinas didn't like her in the beginning, that they couldn't show for obvious reasons, and why MC was her only friend, but we'll never know. Or will we? Her game really starts when Sage warns her of the Ulis targeting her at the merge, and she's like, I'm gonna win immunity. Then she does, which was badass. And from there, she plays with no fear, telling her allies to use her name as a decoy in an attempt to get Rizzo out, putting her own game on the line to get Rizzo out with his idol. And when she gets caught, she quickly owns it and re-strategizes, teaming up with Rizzo in the same round, a recovery that most people wouldn't try and probably wouldn't succeed at. She rides it out with the Ulis for a bit until she's voted out here for being a threat. I take issue with her edit. Had she been edited as a a serious player from the beginning, we would have felt she was a contender, given her being super active in the game and winning competitions, but she got shafted by this edit. I think she's really fun and a good player. I don't expect her to be back again, but I could see her doing better, given the chance to return, though maybe I'm just her #1 supporter for no reason. Whoa, mama, there's a spider in the dock. The final 6 returned from Tribal. Everyone is thrilled that Sophie S is gone. Rizzo calls it God-tier cinema. Steven is particularly happy to still have his block vote advantage, and Sophie has now reclaimed her name as the only Sophie. Sage calls that vote sweet revenge. Rizzo lies to the group, telling them his immunity idol expires at final 6 in hopes that he can once again bluff and keep his idol to final 5. The next day, rain, misery. Sophie still plans to turn on Rizzo and Savannah, feeling like she can't sit with them in the end, so she's starting her plans, conspiring with Christina, who she knows openly dislikes Savannah. They head to their challenge, where Savannah tells Jeff she's tired and hungry, and Jeff is like, too bad, you're about to play this challenge. Am I right, ladies? Players will have to race over a high step, navigate a bag over a ladder bridge, go under a crawl to get another bag, then land one sandbag on their high up pole. The first player to finish this will win reward, and it's a good one. A Mexican feast, tacos, guacamole, margaritas, tres leches, and a night at the sanctuary, and letters from home. Huge reward. So they get started with everyone doing pretty well to start. Steven is in the lead coming out of the bridge, with Savannah on his tail. Rizzo falls way behind, getting discombobulated with his ropes. Eventually, everyone's throwing. A wild throw from Christina. You know she's the girl who throws the bowling ball at the alley. Eventually, hungry, tired Savannah lands her sandbag and wins reward, and gets to share her reward with 2 other players, choosing to bring her boy Rizzo and ally Sophie. Savannah tells us these tacos are going to give her the strength she needs to beat Steven in these immunity challenges. This reward looks delicious. The sombreros are a choice from production. Back at camp, Sage is pissed and feels like she's getting her karma for failing to get Savannah out in the last round. Christina tells Sage and Steven that Sophie is ready to turn on Rizzo and Savannah, so Steven shares with them that he can block one of their opponent's votes and they can take the majority. At the reward, Sophie tells us she feels like being picked for the reward was a sign from God that she should stick with Rizzo and Savannah, so after they name their alliance the Tres Leches Alliance, she opens up to them about her knowledge as power, which they plan to use to steal Steven's advantage. They get their letters from home, which are written by hand, so you know it's not ChatGPT. Rizzo gets really choked up, excited that his dad wrote his letter, which was really sweet, and a letter from his brother with autism who he wants to inspire. Sophie's mom reminds her of her grandmother who she used to watch Survivor with and inspired her to go on the show. We didn't get to hear Savannah's letter. I guess there's not enough time in the 90-minute episode for the challenge winner's letter. That night, back at camp, whoa mama, that's a fat hairy rat. The fat rat attacks the sleeping losers, causing a stir. In the morning, the winners rejoin them to an icy reception. Heading to the immunity challenge, Jeff repos that necklace. Sorry Steven, that thing is up for grabs. It's the Tina Wesson foot thing, which Jeff claims was first played in season 45. The Tina erasure? Unacceptable. Players need to use their foot to balance a ball at the end of their plank. The last player standing wins immunity. They get started. Rizzo's out first, followed by Sophie, Christina, Steven. It comes down to Sage and Savannah, a grudge match. Sage tries to strike a deal with Savannah, who, once again, is not moving and is not having the deal. Eventually, Savannah wins her 3rd immunity. Sage is so upset, her plan is ruined, but she says it's back to the drawing board. Back at camp, Rizzo tries to get Steven to vote for Sophie instead of him, and he gets to work trying to get Sage to help them target Steven. Sage agrees that Steven could win the game, and she brings this back to Christina, suggesting that they join the vote to target Steven. Christina is shocked and seemingly not down. Sage wants the final 3 to be she, Sophie, and Christina. Christina tries denying to Steven that his name is coming up, but Steven sees right through it and says Christina is a sloppy player. Steven declares in confessional that he's casting his block a vote on Savannah, telling us the die is cast. Oop, he said the thing, and he no longer has an advantage that Sophie can steal. As they head to Tribal, Sophie tells us that her grandmother would tell her to steal Rizzo's idol. Instead of trying to take whatever Steven has, she's still considering both options. At Tribal, they unpack Savannah's decision to take Rizzo and Sophie on reward. Steven's talking about all the rats at camp. The jury is eating him up. Sophie expresses valid concern about her allies having protection and the other alliance having an advantage. Rizzo again says he's going to use his idol, repeating his lie that the idol expires this round. Jeff does his Shakespeare impression, saying the players are acting like they're in Othello in the summer. Steven says he's as nervous as shins in a dark room full of coffee tables. He's lost the jury's attention at this point. Alex rolls his eyes like, y'all see this? Before they get to vote, Sophie pipes up, revealing her knowledge is power, asking Steven if he has an advantage, but he has none. This was cringe. The Tres Leches are gooped, and when they go to vote, Savannah finds out her vote has been blocked. Jeff asks for advantages, and when Savannah tells Rizzo she had no vote, Rizzo again stands up, giving his performance, acting like he's playing the idol, but then not playing it. So we get to the votes. It's looking bad for Sophie in this moment, but there's only one vote in that thing for Sophie from Steven, and the rest are for Steven. So by a vote of 4-1, we have to say goodbye to Steven here. So we say goodbye to Steven here, who got a good amount of screen time in the premiere, calling himself a discount Ryan Reynolds, insults and sharing about his hearing loss. He's most featured of the original Hinas, bonding with everyone on the tribe, but also sharing his insecurities, creeping in from high school. He proves his strategy skills when he was alone with the Ulis, and made close bonds with the Bottoms Up Alliance, saving himself. That was the height of his game. But the Bottoms Up Alliance fell apart over time, putting him back in that bad place. But then the strenuous journey that gave him the Block-A vote, he played that well. He kept it for an extra round. It could have been impactful here, but he was such a challenge threat and jury threat. So yet again, the entire tribe piles onto one player. Overall, he was good in challenges, and for the most part played optimally. This vote out was kind of unavoidable. The show loves him. He named several episode titles, and could deserve a second shot. Though, if I'm casting a second chance season and comparing him to other Survivor brainy compies, I'm not sure if I'm clamoring for more Steven. Jeff opens the finale with his metaphor addiction in full force, comparing the alliances this season to tattoos that turned into temporary tattoos. We pick back up where we left off. The final five return to camp. Sage is sad that she voted her friend Steven out, but knew she had to do it for her game. Rizzo celebrates a historic run with his known idol, doing TikTok dances at camp, celebrating making it to the final four. Sophie is embarrassed about incorrectly playing her knowledge as power, clowning herself in front of the jury, but she still has hope that she can do something to save her chances. The next day, a boat, a special delivery, a clue to an advantage in their next challenge. Players need to race out to collect bags of puzzle pieces that, when solved, will make a map to the advantage. The first player to complete it and find the advantage wins it. Rizzo reacts, "I'm cooked, chat." They get started, all giving their best. As usual, Savannah kicks everyone's ass in the puzzle, finishing hers first. Rizzo calls back to the premiere and copies Savannah's puzzle. Savannah's running like an Olympian, but she can't find the advantage as her competitors catch up to her. It's a mad scramble for this advantage. Christina's somewhere on the beach. She's not giving up. Ultimately, Sophie spots the advantage up in a tree and wins an advantage in the next challenge, which makes her feel better about her whoopsie-doopsie at Tribal. They head to their challenge. This looks like a doozy. Jeff reposts that necklace from Savannah. That thing is up for grabs. Players need to do a mud crawl under a net, dig up a hook to drop a ladder, climb into a crow's nest, do a barrel roll, navigate their puzzle pieces up a ladder, and solve their shark puzzle. The first player to finish wins immunity and reward, a trip to the sanctuary for steak, mashed potatoes, red wine, and carrot cake for dessert. Why carrot cake? Brownies must have been busy. Sophie's advantage is that her puzzle pieces are halfway up her ladder. Near the puzzle, she does a little jig to prepare for the task at hand. They get started. Sophie's stuck in the mud. The jig didn't help. Savannah gets an early lead, with Christina spitting her mud out. Reminds me of Nicole spitting in Jeremiah's eyes. Christina's impressing Jeff. As Rizzo and Savannah get to a lead, heading into the barrel crap, Christina takes a hard fall on the knees. I felt like this in college. Four Loko had me down bad, but Christina rallies, saying she's okay, even though she's like maybe not okay. Rizzo and Savannah get to their puzzles first. Sophie's advantage helps her to catch up and get there soon after. My girl Christina falls back on her head. Somewhere out there, my mom is screaming, "You gotta break your neck!" The other Sophie would have won this challenge in record time, by the way. Rizzo celebrates getting a piece, which titillates Jeff. Everyone's on the puzzle, chasing after Savannah. They're basically watching Savannah run away with it, and Savannah completes her puzzle, winning her fourth individual immunity, tying the immunity record for women, and making some history. She gets to pick one player to join her on reward, and she extends the olive branch to Sage. An interesting choice, but also taking your biggest hater left in the game on reward doesn't sound like a bad idea. Back at camp, Christina feels it's either she or Sage going next. Christina proposes a final three to Rizzo and Sophie, saying that's their best chance to win, and Christina volunteers to face Savannah in fire at final four. Privately, Rizzo and Sophie agree that their best chance of winning is against Christina. At the sanctuary, a romantic setting for these two muddy buddies, Sage thanks Savannah and praises her character, and Sage tells us she feels she and Savannah are friends now. Sage's pitch to stay is that she's not good in fire and Christina is, so Savannah agrees that she wants Christina out next. The groups reunite. Immediately, Rizzo and Savannah disagree about the vote, and neither are compromising, which puts Sophie in a swing position. Sage campaigns to Sophie, continuing to push that Christina's good at fire, but Sophie feels Sage's campaign ability is making her want to vote her out. They head to Tribal, where the jury's head nods show respect for Savannah's win, but Savannah says she didn't come out here to make records. She came to win $1 million. Christina sets the stage that it's she or Sage going home, with Christina referencing Sage being upset she lost immunity a few weeks ago and getting hugs, claiming it was social game. Sage is offended that Christina brought that up, saying it wasn't game, and Sage gets upset, feeling this reminds her of not being included in her life, for being different and misunderstood. Christina tries to give Sage reassurance that people like her, but Sage gets defensive, and it becomes a back and forth that's getting nowhere. So they vote, and when asked for advantages, Rizzo finally plays his idol for himself. Jeff reads the votes. There's one vote in that thing for Sage from Christina, and 4 for Christina. So by a vote of 4-1, we lose Christina here, who started the season with lots of fun, silly energy in the premiere and gets a lot of focus with her struggling with the wilderness. I was expecting more funny content from her, but it was mostly super serious. She opens up to Shannon about losing her mother to addiction, and passes out at the challenge, and breaks down at a future challenge. I don't mind serious content. There's a story to be told there. People out there are struggling with grief. They still deserve opportunities, and for their stories to be told. Socially, she connected with with other players, but strategically, pretty ineffective, even finding an idol but wasting it. I wouldn't even say she has social game. It seems she played a very personal game based on her opinions of others. As far as the game goes, I would say she's not a very good player, but she exceeded my expectations because I really thought she broke both her legs in that challenge, and she didn't. The next day, players head to their immunity challenge. Sorry, Savannah, that thing's back up for grabs. Players will dig under a log, then cross a balance beam to get handles and a ball, then use their handles to fish another ball out of a cage. They'll then complete a puzzle that then acts as a maze. The first player to land their balls through the puzzle maze will win immunity and the ability to send 2 other players to the fire making challenge. They get started digging and digging. Savannah squeaks through first, followed by Rizzo and Sage, with Sophie getting stuck in the sand. These ball paddles are cumbersome, but are apparently Rizzo's specialty, as he gets out of there and to his puzzle first, followed by Sage and Savannah. Savannah keeps her cool, zipping through the puzzle, as Sophie continues to struggle and get frustrated with herself in the back, but she eventually joins the others on the table, as Savannah completes her puzzle and gets started with her balls. Sophie speedruns through her puzzle and gets to be head-to-head with Savannah. Sophie whips through this puzzle, getting her first ball so fast, then the second ball, and winning final immunity, getting very emotional and rightfully proud of herself, dedicating this win to her grandmother. Sophie calls this win a fever dream, and oop, she said the thing. Now she has a big decision to make, deciding who to bring to Final 3 and which 2 to send to fire, asking the other players to leave her alone and practice as she decides what she wants to do. Savannah is annoyed that Sophie doesn't want to talk, as she feels she's not good at fire and thinks Sophie is sending her to her doom. So Savannah gets to work, deciding to teach herself to make fire, and she does. Sage is ready to accept her fate either way, but none of the potential fire makers are very good fire makers, it seems. Rizzo gets poo-pooed on by a bird. He thinks it's good luck. Rizzo steals a moment with Sophie, requesting Savannah as his opponent in fire making. They head to Tribal, where the jury is elated that Sophie won immunity. Sophie gives herself props for fighting the whole game and winning when it mattered most. Rizzo publicly requests to go to fire, and Savannah requests to not be. Ultimately, Jeff, she feels 0% confident, and Rizzo saying his confidence is sky high. The first player to build their fire high enough to burn the rope and raise their flag will earn their spot in the final 3. They get started, both getting baby flames that go out. Savannah builds a structure first, getting to touch the ropes, but Rizzo's right on her tail with a little pile. Then his fire goes out as Savannah's towering inferno burns through her rope and earns her a spot in the final 3. A teary goodbye between these two, with Rizzo cheering Savannah on to win the game, and Jeff gives Rizzo his flowers and the floor to speak, getting emotional, saying he wanted to be a legend, has no regrets and made his family proud, but declares RIZGOD is mere mortal. But per his request, Jeff calls him Rizgod and gives him huggies on the way out. So we lose Rizzo here, who starts the season off on the Uli tribe, seeming to always be on the ends of their dynamics, helped by him beating Alex on the Journey Challenge. He has great social game throughout. His personality helped to shape the overall vibe of the season, and he takes control of the game at the split tribal, where he's able to get Sophie S to flip, and at one point has control of all the advantages in the game, which gave his alliance the window to knock down the giant opposing force. His biggest weakness is challenges, where he struggled in nearly every challenge post-merge, even ones I thought he'd be good at. The best part of his game was the masterful manipulation that he pulled off with his idol fake-outs, milking implied immunity for an insane stretch. We missed out on a banger tribal from Rizzo, and I think had he made it that one final step, especially over Savannah, he would have won the game. For me, he's the character of this season, who we obviously will be seeing again on season 50, which I'm excited for. His antics will challenge the players that we already know to think differently about the game. He's probably explaining 6-7 to Suri over iMessage as we speak. The next day, the final 3 celebrate the first all-girl final 3 in 20 seasons. As they reflect about the jurors, we hear some of the jurors' opinions coming into final tribal. Nate says Savannah is a killer. Sophie S respects Savannah for winning challenges when she needed to. Alex calls Sophie the ultimate underdog, with Steven praising Sophie for her spirit and strategy. Sage has her ally Jawan's support, and Christina praises Sage's social and strategic game, wanting to see Sage own it and not be emotional. Sage is planning a big reveal to tell the jury she's secretly a veteran, and Savannah declares she's going full throttle. Jawan declares this Act 3 of the horror movie, saying let's find out who the ultimate final girl is. Getting to the jury questions, when asked about their roles and their alliances, Sophie owns being the social leader in Tres Leches. Savannah pushes back a bit, saying it was more of a partnership, and that she felt a responsibility to win challenges to help her group. Sage says she bonded with Jawan about poop and turned him into an ally, pivoting that into the big reveal that she was in the army with experience and intelligence, saying she used her emotions as a mask to hide how strategic she was. On their motivations, Savannah talks about getting let go as a news anchor and deciding that going on Survivor is to do something for herself and set up her future. Sophie shares about her grandmother, taking care of her full time and watching Survivor with her. Sage's motivation is her friend who passed from leukemia and her partner. Christina calls Savannah out for not caring about the other players that weren't in her alliance. So Christina tasks Savannah to give a name of one family member for each juror, but Savannah says she can't. I probably wouldn't have been able to either. Even after Savannah admitted that she couldn't, Christina still forces Savannah to try, which was hard to watch her struggle through this. Christina doesn't have a Riddler task for the other two. MC asked for times when they swayed votes. Sage Sage owns the vote against Steven. Sophie reveals that she eavesdropped on Alex and Jeremiah's conversation pre-merge, and she lied to Alex about Jeremiah to stay in the game. Savannah owns the Christina vote out, but Sophie interjects saying Savannah was playing personal, keeping Sage safe, and they have a little back and forth where Savannah shades Sophie for sending her allies to fire. Sage tries to own some more vote outs, but the jurors push back. The hyenas seem annoyed with Sage for flip-flopping and letting Tres Leches sneak further into the game. Savannah says getting Sophie S on her side was her best move, and that Sophie was bringing her information that helped to keep her safe when she didn't win immunity. Sage again tries to take credit for taking Sophie S out, but Sophie S clowns on her, saying everybody voted for her, so Sage can't claim it. In their final cases, Sophie claims fighting it out the whole game. Savannah says she dodged bullets with strategy, strong tight relationships, and winning challenges, and Sage owns that she was able to be herself and still make it to the end. The jury makes their decision and Jeff reads the votes. There's 1 vote in that thing for Sage from Jawan, 2 for Sophie from Christina and MC, and the rest of the votes are for Savannah, which makes Savannah the sole survivor of season 49. Let's talk about these finalists. In third place was Sage, who started on Uli, setting the scene with Matt Chad about peeing herself. Over time, we'll get a lot of poop and pee, that kind of stuff. Her tribe mates seem to like her a decent amount, though there's a through line from start to finish of her thinking people don't like her or are her enemies when they really do like her, deciding pre-merge that she just didn't like Savannah and Shannon when she could have just worked with them, which would have given her more options. After creating these one-sided rivalries, she then also retaliated against people who are kind of doing nothing to her, like rolling her eyes constantly at Shannon, who was just being Shannon, or saying she felt Savannah was mean, but then she was going to be a mean girl right back. Then Savannah ends up taking her honorable award out of the kindness of her heart. Sage is an interesting character. If she wasn't likable and funny, I would find her hypocrisy infuriating, but it added fun to the season. Of the final 3, she might have played the best strategic game. The Shannon blindside was a great move that she orchestrated, that she didn't even try to take ownership of, and she was playing the middle and deciding a few votes, but she wasn't able to articulate her game in the final 3, leaving some jurors bitter that she caused their eliminations for no reason. And in second, Sophie, the last surviving Kele, who from the start was connecting with everyone on her tribe, which she'd keep up with throughout the game. She's shown consistently connecting on a personal and game level with everyone, and we see her early on thinking ahead and being self-interested, considering finding Alex's idol and keeping it for herself. She barely survives to the swap, where she makes quick work, fanning the flames on the swap tribe. She tells us her plan is to work with the old Ulis and vote out the hyenas, which is exactly what happened. I loved when she found the knowledge is power and kept it to herself. She's always known where the idols and advantages were the whole game, so I was expecting her to successfully use it and have this strong end game where she bosses up, but it all fell apart when they went on that taco reward. She confessed about her knowledge is power and then misused it at the same tribal, which was a major fumble that cost her the game. While I acknowledge that mistake, I still think there's a lot of good there. She's great socially, and with a little more bravery and trust in her gut, she could be dangerous, making her a great contender for a second chance type season. And our winner, Savannah, who stays in the in-group in Uli through a few combinations. It ends up being she, Rizzo, Nate, and Shannon, and she had a good amount of beef in the pre-merge with Jawan in particular. A big part of her personality is that she's real and says what's on her mind. If something's annoying Savannah, she's gonna say it, which is great in a reality TV person. Early on, we got a lot of content about her being annoyed with Jawan and annoyed about other things, but being blindsided in the Nate vote forced her to focus a bit more on survival in the game and pivoted her away from those narratives, which was good for her and made her a more rounded character. She declares herself the warrior princess. She ate with that branding. Coming into the merge, she's seen by many or most as a major target, winning clutch immunities in spots where she absolutely would have been voted out. In some of those endurance challenges, she was not moving and could have gone for probably hours more. She's blamed by some jurors for not getting to know them or playing with them, but I'm not buying that they wanted to play with her either. Everyone wanted her out, which kept her on the back foot, so she wasn't really in the place to chill and make friends. I like her personality. She's icy, but also silly and loyal to her friends. She communicates very directly with people, which is product of her career and can be helpful, but also puts people off if they don't like her. The storyline of her being a reporter and the stuff about her job could have been fleshed out better in the edit. Overall, the edit was so all over the place and brings back my issue with the show not knowing how to tell the story when a woman wins. They'll put so much effort in to hide the winner, but when a man wins, they get this deep, obvious edit, full story. For me, it was crazy when she won Letters from Home and they didn't give her personal content or put photos on screen. I'm excited to see she and Rizzo on 50. Interesting that they can pretty much lie about how the season went to the other players who haven't seen it and downplay their relationship. She has good likelihood of making it to emerge, given her strength in challenges, and she'll be a serious problem for the other players in individual immunity challenges. Not sure if she's still interested in pursuing reporting, but this win can open doors for her to even get into entertainment reporting or hosting, even some web content for Survivor. I'd also love to see her get a call from the challenge, since she's so impressive in competitions. We never saw her get close to her limit in those endurance competitions. As a thank you to Savannah for appearing on this video, I want to donate and share a link to her local charity, Ready Readers, who are making reading accessible to kids in the St. Louis local area. And I'm including a link to their site so you can donate as well. They do the after show reunion, which I hope is the last time they do this on the island. Jawan spills champagne all over himself. The survivors are acting drunk. Sophie tells the group their tribe name Lawatu means highest ranking woman. They cheers to that. Savannah says she looked up to Kim Spradlin. Jeff jokes with the group about none of their advantages being effective, but Rizzo reminds Jeff he did his shenanigans with the idol. When they're talking about Jake, Sage gets emotional about losing the game, and they pause the conversation to give Sage some love, and Jeff lets the group know that Jake got home just in time to see the birth of his son. So this ends another season of Survivor, which I think was a nice ending point on the 40s era, giving us a mix of things we either love or hate about the era. Three tribes again, which I continue to be bored with, though why change it at this point with one season left? And this season saw the three tribes being different enough, though of course, even with 90-minute episodes, we barely saw anything that happened on Hina. I like that the swap mixed up the game, so we could see things shake up, and even saw the Bottoms Up Alliance take some control for a little bit, but ultimately again, the strongest, most loyal alliance prevailed in the end. The season was full of advantages, multiple idols. Thankfully, the players didn't have to jump through too many hoops to get the idols, which can be boring and repetitive. It was all pretty easy, but the advantages ultimately were such a small part of the season. There was some play defensively around them, but there really might as well have been no advantages or shot in the darks this season. There are a few new era-y things that I'm sick of. The finale after show continues to be boring, and I'd rather the live reunion, but wouldn't we all? The raw reaction to losing without time to reflect is not better than the live version after they've had time. Nothing beats live TV. It was actually hard to watch Sage process the loss and deal with that on camera. She needed some time. We continue to send players on journeys, which I do actually like, but it comes at the expense of camp life segments. This season's rice negotiation was pathetic. There really is no negotiation, and the players called Jeff out on it. I'm hoping for season 50, Angelina is the negotiations ender. Whatever happened to rewards? I mean good rewards, like a helicopter ride, an experience, swimming with jellyfish, Treasure Island, Muppet Treasure Island, which is a banger. We're either sending the players to the table in the woods or the sanctuary. And the food doesn't always look good. I loved the casting this season. Every cast member brought something to the mix and played into the story. All of the entertaining content came from the players, not the production. And when Jeff prodded the cast around the midpoint to basically dance for him and put on a show to earn a spot on 50, you could see the players turning on the heat, as it felt like the game of the season was on the back burner, and putting on a good show was the focus of what would become the stars of the season, who stepped up and tried to make the show happen for Jeff, which ended up being a lot of fun coming from especially Rizzo and Savannah. Savannah turned right up after Jeff told them to be entertaining and tackled MC for the idol keys, and Rizzo ratcheted up the idol shenanigans. You know what? Good for them. Their hard work paid off, earning them, in my opinion, a very deserved spot on season 50. And coming into 50, it's fun that the other players won't know what these two did, and they could even play off that they were enemies, way better than recent Kyle, Camilla, and Joe, who I'm sure will be targeted quickly, which could make Rizzo and Savannah more motivated to keep their relationship a secret. At least that's what I hope happens. So that officially concludes my season 49 coverage, my 5th season recapping the show. Thank you to everyone who's been there from the beginning and who joined along the way. If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing if you haven't. I'll be back every week recapping Survivor 50. Until then, we're talking traders. You know where to find me. Bye.